Hello, so today we're going to be playing towards probably like a LILLIA style game. I think like the last couple days there have been a little bit more interesting videos, I would say, that you can maybe learn a lot from. This video is going to be a very standard LILLIA game. It's not going to be particularly high roll, it's not going to be particularly low roll, but it does show like what I think is one of the more flexible options this set, so I really liken myself to play towards LILLIA if I don't really know what I'm doing, or if I don't really have good direction early. Starting the game though, we do have some direction. Like maybe I can play towards Bard. So I'm just resetting the items. So basically I have two options here, right? I got dropped 2/3 costs, right? I could play towards Faded with the Thresh, and I could play towards Bard. If you're playing Bard reroll, it's very strong, but you need to hit like basically like a bunch of like rods and bows, right? You need to make basically 2 Gwinsus. If you look here, the Exalted is really good for Reapers, as well as melee units in general. So if I'm thinking about my inclination at the start of the game, I'm kind of leaning towards, okay, maybe I can play around this Bard. I didn't get dropped a bow, I didn't get dropped a rod, so Bard is looking a little bit weird to play around. I have a tier and a belt, so I have decent like towards Syndra, so I can maybe play towards Syndra, even though Syndra is nerfed. I have a good option. I already have Dryads early. I have a decent like opportunity to play towards those units, right? It is Ascending Augments. Ascending Augments can be very random at times, so I always liken myself towards playing towards LILLIA in things where I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Here I just sell the Bard. I sold it a little bit early, but I was looking to see if I was going to get dropped either another component. I should have checked the component before I sold the Bard. But I kind of made the decision that like I'm too far off of double Gwinsu, so I don't want to like play Bard and not play the game. As a result, team building would have been nice here as a silver augment. I think my favorite silver augment, this is more of a me preference. I'm not sure exactly which of those options was the best. I don't really like playing towards Exiles and some of the other options I got. I really like to play Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon gives you higher quality units. It makes sure that you're level 5. Then I don't have to worry about pre-leveling or leveling up. I can just establish econ. Right, if I want to lose streak, I still have the opportunity to lose streak as well as hold on to strong units. And I can also win streak and hold on to strong units because it's like a nice little bump. Obviously, I always like to take combat augments. In the late game scenario, having a combat augment is the only thing that's going to differentiate you from other boards being stronger than yours. In a lot of cases, it's whoever has the better combat augments usually wins a lot of the fights, right? But for me at least, I'm here thinking maybe I can play towards Faded. Faded is pretty bad without a rod, without a rod to start, as well as it's pretty bad with a sword, right? Like, LILLIA can use a Shojin. It's not really good on LILLIA if you look at the stats. Typically, blue buff is better on LILLIA. But other units in the comp could use a sword somehow, right? Like, some of the frontline units could use Sterex. Some of the frontline units can use, like, Edge of Night. Things like those options. But with, like, the Syndra board, swords, the only thing you can really make is a Shojin, like a tier and a sword. So, typically, when you're playing around Syndra, having a sword is, like, very awkward to play around. And I don't really like my Syndra spot. I think there's another person that's angling Syndra in the lobby as well. So it's like this guy that's also Silver Spoon. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not sure exactly who's going to end up playing around Syndra in this lobby because somebody has like a Dryad opener. I don't even have Dryad stacking right now. So instead, I'm more liking a line similar to LILLIA. That's my thought process. The reason I'm not slamming any items, though, is because I don't want to necessarily make a Shojin right away. I do have the option of making like a Sterex, and maybe this is like a Hodge. It can easily transfer my items into like melee items, and I don't think I have a particularly strong board to streak anyways. Like my carry is an RE1. Yes, Faded is typically very strong, and I might win a fight if I slam items. But I don't really think that like I think the fights that I would win anyways, right? I don't think putting the Shojin on Ari is going to be the difference maker on my RE1. And in any of the current or very early fights is what I mean to say. If it becomes, it might be an issue this fight. If I lose this fight, it's because it's a Shojin diff. But this is what I was saying, right? I either have enough frontline with Thresh 1 to win the fight, or I don't. Is what it feels like in a lot of the cases. So I'll move my inking tab a little bit lower so you guys can see better. But basically, my thought process is, I'm just going to play like a semi-decently strong board. I'll try my best to establish econ, or a lot of times when you take Silver Spoon, it makes it really easy to hit econ thresholds because you don't have to pre-level, you don't have to level to 5. You just kind of play around it. I'm not as good as a spot as some other people. A lot of people have upgraded units. I have all just 1-star units, right? So one guy had like a Kindred 3, I think. One guy had a Kindred 2. Yeah, this is the Kindred 2 guy. And this guy, he looks like he's angling Reapers, right? For me, at least, I'm kind of thinking like I could maybe play Reapers with these items. I can maybe play LILLIA with these items. My items are very generic, right? Because I have a sword, I have a belt, right? I can make anything. I can make tank items. I can make melee items. I can make AP items. And I'm just not committing, right? I think part of this set, like, as you can see, like, I'm kind of like win-lose, right? Not committing early with items. A lot of the times, especially in this set, it feels kind of weak. It feels pretty bad. I think that you're really favored if you commit very early to certain lines. Here, there is a Yone with a tier. I think I'm just gonna, in my head, I'm just thinking that maybe I just commit towards LILLIA. Because I feel pretty confident that with LILLIA, I can at least, with LILLIA, I feel like I can play multiple boards. And there's many different ways to stabilize. Now, if you watch my content already, make sure to like and subscribe. If you do enjoy my content, by all means, like and subscribe. I'm going to have a subscriber RP giveaway very soon. We reached our sub goal of 500 subs. As soon as I get my shit together IRL, I will give everybody details on how to enter that. So don't worry if you've been waiting for that. Just sit tight a little bit longer, hopefully tomorrow. I was waiting to do it when they did the patch notes, because I believe there's a patch this Wednesday. And I think it's the last patch, so I was going to do like a whole video of like the set in review. And then as per that video, I was going to give you guys the information on entering the contest. I was going to set it up and everything. But they didn't release patch notes, so I'm not sure what's happening. So I don't know if there's like no changes tomorrow, or if like everybody's just busy preparing for Worlds, because it's Worlds TFT tournament next weekend. But they did start to release screenshots and pictures and announcing set 12, so I also have that to react to. So there's gonna be a lot of fun videos coming up in the next week or so, so make sure to like and subscribe. We usually do VOD reviews on this channel, but occasionally we'll also do guides and other stuff like that. And the reason I'm bringing up the channel as well is just if you're looking towards learning how to play LILLIA, I don't think there's like a one-stop guide of this is how you play LILLIA. And like, I hate content like that personally. Like when I was learning, it was like the least useful and most annoying thing for me. So my channel kind of serves the purpose of, hey, we're going to watch somebody criticize their own gameplay over and over again. And watching the video is similar to like as if you're playing a game. I can point out all the things I did right, all the things I did wrong, all the thought processes, instead of just saying, hey, this is strong, play this is the way to transition, play this, because the games are very different, right? If you want to learn how to play LILLIA and all the different lines, I've been making a collection of different LILLIA videos all over my channel that you can go check out. So if you don't like this one, or you see how this one plays out, you might say, I wonder how 7 Mythic LILLIA would work. And then boom, there's a 7 Mythic LILLIA video on my channel, right? That's like the idea behind the VOD review as a learning tool. But anyways, this guy found a Nautilus. That kind of sucks, right? This was the guy I was saying that might play, like, I think he looked like he was going to play Syndra. And now he looks like he's going to play LILLIA, and he already has a Nautilus. That's fine. The thing with LILLIA will show in this game especially, you can stabilize around pretty much any frontline unit. Here I made blue buff. I looked at the stats before. I can pull up the stats again just in terms of LILLIA. Before, LILLIA used to be pretty bad in some cases with blue buff, right? So I'll put LILLIA here, and then we'll go items, right? Before, craftable. I'm just setting it all up so that I can just quickly tab in and out, right? So if we're looking at stats in terms of this, right? In terms of LILLIA items that are really good, some of them are like very situational, obviously like Crown Guard and Edge of Night. Like these are more situational things for obvious reasons. But I remember I looked at the stats and it said that Adaptive Helm is really good on her. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because it's like Adaptive Helm with something else. I didn't do a deep dive into the stats, so don't take my word for it. I'm not sure exactly why Adaptive Helm seems like it's one of the best mana items on LILLIA. But typically, with LILLIA, you're either playing a 2 Invoker line or a 4 Invoker line, right? 2 Invoker is like that Sage variation, which typically does pretty poorly. And before, the Sage variation was always really good with Shojin, right? So when you're 2 Invoker LILLIA, typically Shojin is better, just because the way that the Shojin grants mana, it gives you starting 15 mana and attacks grant 5 bonus mana. With 2 Invoker, change how it applies mana to the unit. It basically makes it so that the auto attacks line up perfectly, so LILLIA casts perfectly. Blue buff is always good in a sense on LILLIA because it gives her the extra damage, but it makes her less efficient on casting on time. That's why blue buff is worse with 2 Invoker. It's just because with the 2 Invoker buff, the way that Shojin grants mana versus the way blue buff adjust mana thresholds, it makes it so that Lillia's first cast and subsequent cast line up better with Shojin with 2 Invoker, right? And the other idea is if you're playing a 4 Invoker line, so the 4 Invoker line is when you have like Annie frontline, so you basically play Annie as a frontline unit and something else, you'll see that all of a sudden, blue buff is the 100% way to go, and Shojin is all the way down in the trenches, right? The idea is that when you play 4 Invoker, the threshold for the mana lines up much better with blue buff to a point where it's just like the obvious decision because of how much extra stats and how powerful blue buff is as an item, right? So when you look at my board, I am not doing, it's not good for item economy, obviously, right? I made blue buff. Here I found a Morgana, so I made blue buff. I put the items on Morgana, I put the blue buff, and I made a Morello as an anti-heal item because I know I'm going to be playing against Reapers. I know I'm going to be playing against like other frontline units, but as you can see, I think it was a gold orb drop, by the way. So the gold orb that I got dropped was Morgana and Annie. This was on Krugs that I just tapped out so you guys didn't see. So I already have an Annie, so I'm basically very committed towards the 4 Invoker line. I made blue buff, which means that I'm going to be playing the 4 Invoker Lillia line. I didn't really want to play Shojin and then make it worse. Blue buff in itself, as I showed you in the stats, something I noticed is that even with 2 Invoker, blue buff is also still pretty good on Lillia just in terms of the stats that it gives. I know that people are going to blow up if you're really good at the game. You'll be like, no, the autos don't line up, it's bad. What I'm saying is, like, I don't know, I'd rather have blue buff with 2 Invoker than have Shojin with 4 Invoker. If that makes sense, right? My item economy is pretty bad though, right? I made blue buff. This is the risk reward. Also, I'll talk about Capricious Forge in a second. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Capricious Forge. The thing is, this is a very greedy way of playing. I was kind of playing very like I'm gonna win out type of beat, but it's pretty bad. The reason that it's bad, this is why usually you don't make blue buff, and I'll tell you why it seems like it's a mistake this game, and I'm pretty sure it is a mistake. If I didn't make blue buff, my other items would have been Shiv, which is really important for Lillia, and Shojin, which is still a mana item that's okay, right? It's not that bad. So if I made, instead of making blue buff, now I made it a couple turns ago, so I didn't know that I was going to get dropped these components in particular. But I could have easily combined these items by not making blue buff. I could have handled everything. I would have had Morello, Shojin, Shiv. I would have had anti-heal, shred, and mana item. I would have been completely good to go, right? It kind of sucks that Malphite showed up this turn. I sold my Morgana for Econ last turn. I could have probably not done that. But anyways, when you're playing the Lillia line, the main thing that's important with Lillia is that Lillia always needs 2 backline carries. You need Lillia, you need somebody else, and you need a frontline unit. So the problem with the Lillia line is usually the amount of items that you require in order to play the line, right? Lillia is very hard to play when you don't have a lot of items. Now, obviously, there's a lot of item encounters, which can really help out your board, but if you don't hit the item encounters, you're pretty much fucked unless you have a bunch of items. So what did I take? I took Capricious Forge because it's basically like a Thieves' Gloves with good items that sometimes you can high roll into some Giga Comp. What it does is it allows me to itemize one of my frontline units with 2 Ornn artifacts. And what that allows me to do is it fixes my items in such a way that I have enough items to itemize the Lillia. After I make my 3rd Lillia item, I will make I will itemize another backline carry, and I have some frontline items which will help my team stabilize into late game. Like I said, I played this in a very greedy way. I played it in a very like, I'm going to play the best board, or I'm going to play the strongest thing, right? The strongest thing on Lillia is the blue buff, right? That I made. But I think it's an incorrect decision in most cases. I think even in this case, you can argue that it's a bad decision because I could have easily played, I could have easily had 3 Lillia items right now, and it would have been, I would have been in a better spot for later in the game, if that makes sense. Like, as you can see, I am streaking out this whole stage, though. I'm very strong. I'm playing around my 4 cost really well, and also Capricious Forge is pretty strong. It's just like a Thieves' Gloves, but a little bit better. Could be worse in some cases, but in this case, it's really good because Alawi's really good at making use of Ornn artifacts, right? And I have like a decent option of playing around those frontline units that I already have gotten, right? So I spiked really well. Note that it's ascending augment, so the last augment is going to be a swing augment, right? If I get a prismatic combat, I probably can win the game. If I don't get a prismatic augment, I'm probably just playing for like a 3rd/4th, right? That's the way that prismatics go when it's ending prismatic, in my opinion. If it's ending prismatic, and somebody is in a good spot and they take a combat augment, they're going to be so far ahead of everybody else in terms of combat power on their board that it's going to be very, very hard to keep up with them. Unless you hit everything. Unless you literally hit all of your units and you're just like giga strong, you probably won't win out. You'll do well, but you won't win out. This guy has really insane items. I'm not sure if he's going to play, he might just go back to Syndra at this point. These items look like really good Syndra items. I could have also played around Syndra, by the way. Remember I talked at the beginning, I didn't know if I was going to play Syndra or not. The main reason I'm not playing towards Syndra this game, and this is a big thing, is Dryad stacks. Syndra is very playable outside of the Dryad faded line. Like, you can play her with other frontline units. The problem is those units feel like they don't cap as high. The best Syndra board is typically that faded Dryad comp that you normally would see with Ornn as your main tank in the front, right? Because my items, I could have like made like blue buff. I could have instead of Morello made Nashers, right? And then I could have made Gunblade, right? I could have made like Syndra items, which aren't like necessarily the best, but not very bad. They're very good, right? Don't get me wrong. But the problem with playing around Syndra is without the Dryad stacks, right? If I didn't have Dryad in for most of the game, so without Dryad being in most of the game, I don't get those stacks that eventually translate to my Ornn being very strong later. And a lot of times I lose out in positions like that. Here I didn't position around the Lux. This is my bad, so I'm just kind of throwing. I think I lose this fight probably. But it worked out. I think Lux is gonna hit my Alune last, so I might be fine. But I still think I'm gonna get destroyed. Yeah. This is a problem I'm having a lot right now in the current patches. I'm not playing that much. I've not been super well, you know, so I'm just doing the bare minimum of just playing TFT for the daily uploads. So I haven't been keeping up with the meta, but I think the meta is very reroll favored. I think by the end of this set now, most of the comps, I'm not saying they're figured out, but I'm saying that you're much more rewarded for committing to a line earlier than playing towards something else later, if that makes sense. It's a lot better to just like on 2-1 first augment, get something that's very, very strong that gives you 100% direction than to play around something else. Now, here's the problem, right? Remember before I was saying I could have made a Shojin and then I would have been fine and everything. Now I have all these fucking swords that I have to kill, right? The swords aren't easy to kill, but there is a couple tricks that you can do with the sword. So I make Shiv here because it has to be Shiv, right? I need Shred. I have a decent front line, so I'm not too concerned with my items. It's probably gonna be Edge of Night on one of the frontline units. I think that's what I'm gonna end up making. I make Edge of Night a lot. I don't know if it's Troll. Here I'm trying to level to 8 as soon as possible. I'm not sure how contested I am. It's very hard to tell if people are just gonna hold on to and commit to Lillia, or if I'm gonna be like uncontested and play Lillia. Like this guy is 100% playing Lillia, right? The other guy that might be playing Faded might be playing Lillia. I don't know how contested I'm going to be. This guy already rolled and he's playing the Sage variation of Lillia, which is really good for me because he has this Morgana upgraded. I'm pretty happy with that because I am not playing Sage. I'm going to be playing 4 INVOKER variation. 4 INVOKER variation is great. I really like the 4 INVOKER variation of Lillia because I feel like your front line has the ability to be way more flexible. You can pretty much throw anybody in the front line when you're playing 4 INVOKER Lillia. And that's why I kind of usually commit to blue buff more often than Shojin. I got really punished here because I have the 2 swords. That's why I was saying, like, even in hindsight, what I did was a very big mistake early on. I could have made Shojin. I could have had a Shojin for another. I could have had 2 Shojins and Shiv and have a chainmail to play around for a frontline item. Instead, I'm left with 2 swords on my bench, which isn't necessarily the greatest. Now, we're looking for Prismatic Combat. Do we get a Prismatic Combat? We get Call to Chaos, and we don't get a Prismatic Combat, so we're taking Call to Chaos, right? I'm just rolling the dice on it. We need a miracle here because I'm contested Lillia and I'm not particularly rich. So we're going to try our best. We find Nautilus, which is great. I think a single copy of Lillia and I should be fine. Malphite, we knock off the items. I just need to put in Lillia. 4 INVOKER, I'm 4 Mythic, so I could probably play 5 Mythic. It's probably lose Silas for 5 Mythic here. It's just a little bit awkward because I'd rather not play another Mythic unit, if that makes sense. I really want to fit in like a good frontline unit. But basically, I'm just playing Silas here, right? If you're playing 4 INVOKER, you can play Alune and Silas. And then you can play towards these units, right? Technically, I could drop Alawi to play Bruiser. I kind of have a hybrid of 2 different lines, right? A lot of times you can play Silas with Tom Kench, right? Or you can play Nautilus with Alawi, right? So it's probably like, honestly, it's probably lose like like if I was level 9, I can fit in the last mythic. That's typically what you do with this board, right? On level 9, because 4 Invoker is really important, as I was showing before. This guy got Lucky Gloves, which is fine, but he's Grim Harvest. He just railed me. It's okay. We'll make it work, right? This Ornn should go in. I'm basically rolling every turn. I have too many unit pairs. I'm holding these Alaois because maybe I just hit Alaoi 3 if I'm stuck on level 8. I find an Azir now, so now I can really like position my units a little bit better. But basically, what am I going to do here? I'm going to keep Alaoi in. It's probably lose Silas. Also, I have Edge of Night here. This is something that I'll teach you guys a trick. This is a really important trick that you guys should learn. I could lose this guy because I am 3 mythic, and this is just my board. And then I want to put in Ornn over somebody, so it's probably Ornn over this guy, and boom. Now we have 4 Invoker, 3 mythic, 2 Arcanist. We have Dryad stacking and Warden. And then I can level for a Behemoth, or I can do something else. I put Edge of Night on Nautilus. Why do I put Edge of Night on Nautilus? This is what I was saying, that Edge of Night isn't that bad sometimes. I don't know how it works in the stats, but I'll tell you why it's really good. Why it's really good here at least. If my Nautilus happens to die, he basically gets de-aggroed because of the Edge of Night. That allows him to live a little bit longer. And if he's not aggroed and people are aggroing, for example, the Annie or one of my 2-star frontline units, or maybe even Azir soldiers, this Nautilus gets to cast again. If the Nautilus casts again, that's enough to swing the fight. That's why I put Edge of Night on Nautilus. Now, what I should do, this might sound a little bit crazy, but it's a specific scenario that I didn't consider until I watched the VOD of this game. Like, I realized it after the game ended. I was like, oh shit, I should have done that. So something we're going to look out for is Edge of Night cheesing, right? Something you might not know about, or maybe you do know about it. You probably have seen it somewhere. If you haven't, I'll be the first one to show you, and that's cool. What you can do with Edge of Night is basically what Edge of Night does is when you drop below a certain health threshold, it makes you intangible, right? It makes you invincible, and then other units don't target you. They target somebody else. You lose aggro, right? You lose people trying to hit your unit that has the Edge of Night. That's why it's really good on melee units, really good on Kayn, right? Because if Kayn drives the back line and starts trying to kill shit, and then all of a sudden he gets de-aggroed, you're in a great spot, right? Because your Kayn doesn't get aggroed. It's the same with the Nautilus. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make it so that my Nautilus can get another cast off. If my Nautilus gets another cast off, he stuns a bunch of units that can sway the fight, and that can make me really strong, right? But basically, here I'm also switching my damage items, right? I put what's it called? The thing. I put anti-heal on a Loon because a Loon hits multiple units, and I put 3 damage items on LILLIA. My Call of Chaos, I didn't mention it, was a frontline item, so I have a lot of frontline. It's just a matter of keeping my LILLIA safe in order to make sure that I ramp my damage up sufficiently. But the Edge of Night, what I should do is watch when the Syndra hits my Nautilus, right? You see, like, she hits him, and then, well, Edge of Night already procced, so it doesn't work here. But what you could do with Edge of Night cheesing, so Edge of Night cheese, what you do is you hold on to the Edge of Night with your cursor, and then as soon as the opponent unit casts, you drop it on the unit. Then you have your time. If your timing is really good, what will happen is you try and drop the Edge of Night on your unit when they're 1 HP. Basically, what you're trying to do, you're trying to waste their cast, right? Here, the Edge of Night procs that I think 40% health. I forget if it's 40 or 50% health. So if my Nautilus drops to 50% health, he gets de-aggroed, and somebody else starts aggroing another unit. What you can do is you can hold on to it because it's Malphite and counter, right? It's the same as having like a golden remover. So I could remove the Edge of Night every turn, and then I drop it on the Nautilus at the exact moment he's about to die. It will make him invincible, and it will waste as much of the opponent's time as possible, right? Especially if imagine if they have like an Azir, where Azir does like a huge amount of damage. You want to soak that up. If you time it perfectly, like as soon as the Azir is about to cast and you drop the Edge of Night, the Azir will hit him, and then it will waste his cast, right? That's Edge of Night cheesing. It's really good to do, and in a lot of cases, it makes you really strong. Here, I'm just zooming in because look at my bench. This is what I mean by it's not particularly high roll, it's not particularly low roll. I'm trying to play as flexibly as possible. This is with LILLIA, right? It might not be the typical LILLIA line that you see Ornn here. I have an Azir early, so I'm playing Azir, right? I'm trying my best to fit in as much of a board as possible. I chose to keep this unit instead of Umbral because I have a huge health shield because of my Call to Chaos, so I don't need Umbral in addition to extra unit. I just need more damage, so Nico gives me Arcanist, which helps my LILLIA do more damage. But basically, I'm paired on everybody, right? And this is what I mean, right? If I have any of these units paired, If any of these units are upgraded, I can stop rolling. I have to roll here because I have 3 unit pairs. Hitting any of them spikes my board by a lot, right? Nautilus 2 makes my board really strong. LILLIA 2 makes my board insanely strong, right? Azir 2 makes my board insanely strong. So I have to roll until I hit one of them, if not multiple if I'm low HP. So I'm kind of in an awkward spot where instead of going to level 9 and capping out my board and being like really strong, whether I win fights or lose fights, I kind of have to commit to playing around, rolling for an upgrade basically, right? Here I'm playing another LILLIA player. I think I'm 3-way contested LILLIA. So this game ended up being really hard. I don't know why everybody pivoted into LILLIA, but I think they all have a similar mindset as me, where it just like feels more comfortable to play around LILLIA instead of these other units. I could level, lose the Alune, or sorry, Alune. I don't know how to, I say it so many different ways because so many people say it different ways. I can lose Alune for, what's his name? Kog'Maw, and then I can play 5 Mythic. That's like my level 9 cap out of this board, right? Ideally, I can play anything else. It's not that big of a deal because I don't have a Mythic +1. So, but 5 Mythic is really good because it gives a lot of frontline tankiness as well as general damage buffs, right? Here I'm positioning my LILLIA not in the corner because I don't want to get sniped by Lux, right? Lux is going to snipe my LILLIA. Like I said, my board has a lot of frontline, but the only way I lose a fight is if my backline just randomly dies. There's a lot of backline access comps, right? There's reroll Lux, there's reroll Yone, there's other LILLIA players like this guy, LILLIA Morgana. This kind of sucks for Morgana placement, but I don't want my LILLIA to be out in the open too much in case that she gets sniped by Reapers. But I'm pretty sure this Morgana will cast... Oh, she casted this way. That's good for me. I was going to say she might cast and kill my LILLIA. But anyways, like I said, I could be more efficient with how I proc this Edge of Night. But compared to the other LILLIA players, I feel like I stabilized really hard. I don't know how they did their roll down. Obviously, I high rolled. I had an Annie already. So I had Annie 2, Ornn 2 really early. But as you can see, my LILLIA died first. But I just have so much frontline because of my Call to Chaos in conjunction with having so many frontline units that my board is very stable. And that's the thing about LILLIA, right? As long as you're fitting in 3 Mythic, you're pretty much okay to play whatever. Like, there's the 2 Invoker variation, which is okay, but you can still play, like, if you play 4 Invoker, 3 Mythic, it's actually very flexible. You can fit in a lot of units in order to strengthen your board, and that's the thing you should always think about, right? You should always think, what's the best thing I can do here? Like, for example, here, I have Edge of Night on this guy. As you can see, he's going to get de-aggroed. I think he still dies because Kayn does AoE, so that's really unfortunate in terms of my placement. If I want to do better in this fight in particular, I should have put the Nautilus away from the Kayn. Just strictly because then I would how do I phrase it? If I put my Nautilus away from the Kayn, he wouldn't have died so soon because he got de-aggroed, but then he just got AoE'd. And this is what I was saying, right? If you have backline access to the Yone dove, he killed my my dude, and I just lost the fight, right? And the problem is I can't. It's annoying with positioning because I think the Yone wouldn't have targeted my LILLIA if I put my LILLIA in the corner. But if I corner my LILLIA, then the Lux player is going to beat me. So it's like I'm kind of in a spot where my matchmaking is like I'm either fighting a Yone player or a Lux player. And it's like either one that I fight, I'm going to get screwed one way or the other. So it was really unfortunate. Losing those lives, this is what I mean by it's not particularly a high roll. Here I just take JG. Right, I have decent frontline, right? I don't have that many frontline items, but I got this Capricious Forge, which is a really good frontline setup item to play towards one of my units being fully itemized. I have these 2 items. I could put them on the same unit. It's just that this is Nautilus 1 and this is Ornn 2. I want the Edge of Night on the Nautilus because I think the stun matters so much more than the Ornn item. Right, having Ornn live a little bit longer, I don't want Ornn to get de-aggroed, right? I want Ornn to soak up as much damage as possible. So the Edge of Night on the Ornn doesn't make that much sense, even though it's like an item and it helps out the Ornn and helps him cast. I want people to get stuck on this Ornn, right? But what I do want is I want this Nautilus to live. If this Nautilus lives like look at this turn, right? Look, ready? Syndra was attacking Nautilus. What happens? Nautilus gets de-aggroed. I don't know if he got a second cast off, but that's the idea, right? That's the idea behind what I'm doing here. I'm trying to make it so that the Nautilus lives and hopefully can get one more cast off. Here, this guy's just way stronger than me. This is what I was saying by I really didn't high roll very hard. I had to roll for LILLIA. I had to roll for some other units. I couldn't just go to level 9. This guy's level 9. He has set 2, Ornn 2, full stacking Dryad. I'm never going to beat that Syndra board, right? we can accept that. If you look at the landscape of the game, I'm pretty good in terms of HP, but I'm very close to these guys. I just have to lose 1 or 2 fights. I'm pretty sure that I am the weakest in the lobby, right? The Lux matchup is pretty bad for me because I don't have enough damage. I really need to get like more damage unlocked, right? Leveling up is also really important for me. Because if I level to if I get to level 9, I can fit in 5 mythic. That's like a huge power jump for me as well, right? But the Lux player, typically LILLIA beats Lux, but it's only when you cap out, right? It's only when you're like so much stronger. I think the Lux guy is more ahead than me. I think usually the Lux can snipe the backline faster than they can snipe the backline. But if you watch this fight, I think he out DPSs me, right? The LILLIA, this was so unfortunate, by the way. He didn't Zephyr my LILLIA, but he Zephyred everybody else. So my LILLIA still got targeted by the Lux first. So my LILLIA has so much less health, which makes it really rough. And as you can see, I just can't kill this Amumu, right? I have Shred. It's not a matter of not having Shred. It's just I literally just can't kill the Amumu. And this is what I mean by DPS. Usually I can kill the backline units a bit faster, but because I'm playing around Azir, Azir is to melt the front line, right? I'm positioning Azir in the corner because I need to position something in the corner, else the Lux is going to target my LILLIA. And then the fucking Janna encounter made Zephyrs appear. So now guess what? My LILLIA gets countered first anyway, so I lose my damage early, which sucks. Or a little bit earlier than I could have. But the thing is, typically with LILLIA, you're pairing it with, like, you know, in that matchup, I probably would have been better off if I put these items on a Loon. Because I'm not killing the Amumu anyways, right? And what you want to do is you want to pair LILLIA with another backline damage dealer. That's why LILLIA Morgana used to be so good, because the damage that LILLIA does, she does like a shit ton of damage, and then another unit finishes them off, right? And that's why like typically it's okay with Azir to play LILLIA Azir like this, but that's with the idea that instead of like trying to cheese and kill the backline, your Azir helps your LILLIA kind of plow through the front line. But I didn't have enough damage to break through the Amumu, so that's why I lost that fight, right? Part of it is also not having Nautilus 2. Nautilus 2 would help a lot. Here I'm just trying to go level 9 because I'm thinking that I could just play towards 5 Mythic. I should be holding on to like a Tahm Kench or one of these in case I play Mythic. But I think it's like I'm very Doomer pilled, like, or Doomsday pilled, because I think the lowest HP guy is this guy. And this guy completely counters me. Like, it's a very hard matchup represent to LILLIA because of the reasons I was saying before. So I'm pretty sure I lose this fight as well. And I'm just going to end up 4th. Oh, actually, no, I win this fight this time. Nice, never mind. Okay, so it's just a guaranteed 4th now. Okay, so we're 4th for sure. That's good. I thought I would lose against this guy the same way I lost the previous time, but I guess he just didn't find anything to strengthen his board. But anyways, like I was saying, you usually want to pair up like the LILLIA damage with like a backline access or something like that. It's just really hard to position. I should position a little bit better as long as I'm not fighting the Lux player. I don't know who this guy is. If he's not the Lux player, it should be LILLIA in the corner and Azir closer to the middle so that Azir his cast gets more value on hitting more of the frontline units. Here I level. I put in a Behemoth. Oh, it's definitely Mythic. It's lose the Alune for Mythic. That's my bad. Oh, do I not see it? Yeah, I guess I just don't see it. There's even a way here. Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I messed up. Damn it. Okay, that's on me. This is on me. That's my bad. I still don't think I beat this guy. Right? Level 9, Set 2, Ornn 2, Syndra 2, Baboom, Prismatic Combat. Remember I was talking about Prismatic Combats? The only way that they can get way ahead of you is if they have a combat and you don't. Well, guess what? I don't have a combat. And this guy just fucking killed my oh, god damn it. Maybe it was a 5 Mythic diff. But I'm pretty sure I lose against this guy no matter what. But I might have been able to get like a 3rd here if I put in the Mythic this turn. Would I beat him? I don't think I beat him, but I might have lived. Because I got perfect lethaled here, right? I got exactly perfectly killed. If I live one more turn, do I beat the other guy? I could have got better placement, for sure. Right? We can agree on that. Surely I get a better placement. So yeah, I kind of tossed the last round here. Right? The reason I tossed was because I should have put in Mythic, right? It's lose a Loon. You basically sell a Loon, you put in Kog'Maw. I had Kog'Maw on bench, and then I had to sell Udyr. Like, I just don't play Udyr, and I play like any Mythic. Typically it's Wei, right? Wei is probably better, right? But that would have been my strongest board, right? That I was talking about it a little bit before, and I should have followed through with it. I should have said exactly what I was doing. I think what happened was I put in the Udyr because it was Behemoth, and then I got dizzy when I was doing my transition. I was like, wait, how am I not 5 mythic? I think that's what happened there, and that's like something that happens to me all the time. I'm not in the best mental state these days, so it's a little bit difficult. I'm pretty sure this guy just beats my ass most of the time. Most days of the week, this guy's just way stronger than me. But it's also a really bad matchup. He does have only Kane 1, but if he hits Kane 2, I don't win out against him. Just because in terms of like Grim Harvest with Lucky Gloves and having items on multiple different carries, as well as itemizing towards Wukong 2, he's just more ahead than I am in terms of the game, so long as he hits Kane 2. The Lux player, maybe I have enough damage with 5 mythic to beat the Amumu, but it's a little bit difficult to say. And this guy, I don't think I ever beat him. I don't think I ever beat the Syndra player, just because of how far ahead the Syndra player is in terms of like stacking Dryad, set 2, damage, ba-boom, like literally prismatic combat. But yeah, this was another LILLIA game. Hopefully it was informative. Obviously, towards the end, I didn't play it particularly well. I definitely played it, I think, in such a way that allowed me to outplay some of my other LILLIA contenders in the lobby. And a lot of it just matters about playing around your front line, picking augments that make sense, making sure you have a lot of items, right? If I didn't have Capricious Forge, I definitely don't get a top 4 here, right? Understanding that LILLIA requires items, as well as knowing like I can cap out around these items in this way. And I think Edge of Night, it might have made a difference, maybe not. But I wouldn't prioritize it. It's just a way of like dealing with some leftover items in a way that makes sense to your board. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this was a fun video and somewhat informative. And like I said, if you want to see other LILLIA videos, please check out the other ones on my channel. Thank you.